Everyone, welcome again to another insightful discussion. We have with us Miss Priyanka, whom you've met earlier. She's the first women psychologist to travel, especially she went with the women's hockey team, and she's also into family constellation, which I hope we can actually dwell upon a little. So,
Yeah, definitely.
welcome, Priyanka.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah. So today, what we're going to be looking at is how do we develop a champion mindset, right? So I'd like to ask you, who do you feel, who do you think is a champion, firstly?
That's a very interesting question because as you're saying about who do you think is a champion, I have multiple athletes who are coming to my mind.
Yeah.
Right? I'm thinking of Federer, I'm thinking of Virat Kohli, Neeraj Chopra is coming to my mind, Serena Williams is coming to my mind.
Yeah.
So there are multiple, athletes who are
Yeah.
actually coming to
Yeah.
my mind.
And it's also what our 400-meter relay team just said, right? Like it's so no one's born a champion. The reason I wanted to start
Yeah.
with who's a champion is we don't know, right? Like even with Neeraj, of course, there was always that hope and expectation.
Hmm.
But then what he did was he came to the world stage.
Yeah.
And what the 400-meter runners said, I think there was this one comment where they said, किसी को पता नहीं था, expectation नहीं था, and then boom, look at what they did,
They
right?
were
Like,
phenomenal. I
yeah.
mean, to see them go out there and perform was amazing. It was magical.
Yeah, exactly. So now let's come to the next question of what makes a champion. You can take any one athlete that you want to go and we can dwell in that, or the remarkable work that you did with the hockey team, because it was really a renaissance period, right? Like, so would you like to dwell on that?
Yeah, definitely. I'm just thinking that what makes a champion, I feel that there are a team of people who actually make a champion happen.
Yes.
Right? It is the coach there is a set of parents, and then we have the whole team and the support staff, who really contribute in the making of this particular athlete. Like recently, I was watching Carolina Marin's documentary, with respect to how she overcame injury and made a comeback. I mean, for me, she's a phenomenal champion, right? Because the way the whole process has been so painful, it doesn't mean champions don't experience those emotions and pain.
Yeah.
But she was amazing in the way she's made her comeback,
Yeah.
with multiple injuries, and she kept her focus in terms
Yes.
of what is important for her to focus on, and that's the way. And with becoming a champion is a process. That's my
Bang on.
statement.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was smiling because you said injury. I mean, I'm not a
Yeah.
champion in that sense, but
Yeah.
I'm just like looking at, and you're right, what you're saying about this athlete. And also, even if you look at like a lot of our own athletes, right? Like, especially Neeraj's journey, Neeraj Chopra, before his Olympic medal, he had a shoulder injury as well. So, and resilience is, what do you feel? It's such a key component, right?
Absolutely. And becoming a champion is also in terms of how do you cope with adversity.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like in terms of how do you deal with all those setbacks which happen in your life and you still keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And an athlete's career is not just filled with, all the highs and all the medals. It's also filled with injuries. There are also other issues which happen.
Yeah.
They have their relationships, they have their, friendships, and they go through every single thing just like a normal individual. Along
Precisely.
with that, going out there and performing is something
Yeah.
requires a different level of spirit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even what I remember with Virat, right? Like just that 1 year lag, and not that he wasn't performing, but just because there was no century to his name, and then of course there was unfortunately a couple of ducks, but how people write you off, right? I'm just glad that Neeraj's journey has been consistently upward.
Yeah.
But I think, like, when we take a team sport, like, right, like let's say cricket or hockey, they just put on a pedestal and they're pulled down, and
Absolutely.
dealing with that shadow, right? Like in your lows, and coming back, I think that really to me makes and is a champion, right?
Yeah. If you actually look at the women's team also, in Rio they were 12th, but right now in Tokyo Olympics they came 4th. I mean, there was a lot of process.
Yeah, and
which
that fourth
happened.
was almost like a gold, right? Like it was
Yeah,
amazing.
absolutely.
Yeah. And I love how you touched on it's a field, a group of individuals, or this supporting staff, including the parents, including maybe the sponsors,
Yeah.
and the rest of us sports science professionals. Because what happens back screen, I think very few people know. They
Yeah.
just know that, oh, okay, fine, and Neeraj won a gold, or hockey won a bronze, so this one did, but that consistent support is so paramount, right? and
Yeah.
and in psychology we have what is, the field theory, right? Like, so it's like, who is that group which supports you, and
Yeah.
who are you going to keep your focus on, because there are also going to be a lot of people who are going to pull us down.
Yeah.
And Priyanka, if you could give us an example, because we know you're into family constellation, and you
Hmm.
beautifully, bring the two worlds together. So does anything come up to you in terms of, maybe an athlete where, the field, right,
Hmm.
was you worked with that aspect to empower that athlete?
I would say that, I've been, I mean, there are multiple athletes, but I think this is one thing that I want to talk about,
Sure.
wherein this one athlete has been feeling so anxious,
Mm.
every time she goes out there and performs, because she really doesn't want to disappoint her parents in any which way. The love for her parents is so much that, she doesn't want them to feel sad with her performance at all.
Right.
Yeah. But then I think even talking to them about it in terms of what kind of support I want from you, how do I even want you to, you know, express your support so that I don't feel pressurized, has been so difficult.
Right. Right.
So I think in the sessions, it's all about making the parents understand how
Mm.
important they
Yeah.
are,
Yeah.
for the system of athletes, and how important their role is,
Yeah.
especially for the development and the performance of this particular athlete. I think that is so important, because, be it the parents or be it the coach or be it anybody, without anybody, I don't think the performance
Yeah.
can be
Yeah.
extremely difficult. I
Yes.
remember there was this one particular student in my class. He was narrating this example and it was so beautiful. He said that, I was working with the parent, and I mean, of course, the parent was able to notice that every single time the parent is on the, cheering for the athlete, or she's getting disappointed, the athlete is getting affected quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So she decided that, what, I'm not going to be there at all. So let my child go out there and play.
Right.
But even with that, the child still did not perform even when the parent is not present.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, even when the parent made the conscious decision that I will not be present so that he doesn't get pressurized, it did not work.
Right.
So what I'm saying is, it's so important that the parents support, and their presence is so important, and how they can support and be present, rather than feeling that, if I am not there in the system, my child is going to be fine. That doesn't work at all.
Yeah, it's very interesting what you're saying, because I mean, it's one of the challenges for me,
Hmm.
has been really to get through to the parent that,
Yeah.
knowingly, unknowingly, with the right intention, you could actually be hampering, your ward. And I very well recall one example that, which is a little opposite to what you're saying, but it was such an anxious parent that
Hmm.
when he was there,
Hmm.
she would shrink. And she
Yeah.
said it in the session that, I think it was the dad. She said, it's like, I really feel pressured, but it's
Hmm.
also so sensitive, right? How
Yeah.
do you actually tell it? And I But then he was also this very, very anxious man.
Hmm.
And it really does need a little bit of convincing,
Hmm.
because they're mirroring. You
Yeah.
are, like you said, you're the primary support system,
Hmm.
right? And I think also what you said is very right, because it's also not just about, being there and not being there. The
Hmm.
internal parent is there.
Yeah,
What you've been
absolutely.
growing, and what's been told to
Yeah,
you
and
as
the
a child.
messages that you hear from your parent, is always there
Yeah.
within the athletes.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
it is, because especially that this chunk that we're discussing about, it's very important. I like to get parents right to the first session, or at least when I used to work a lot more
Hmm.
with
Hmm.
parents. And you understand the dynamics,
Hmm.
right? So you could be doing all the right things, but the underlying message is, if you don't trust in your ability
Hmm.
of your ward, it could even be 25, 30-year old. That's the message you're giving through.
Yeah.
So thank you, yeah, for bringing that.
And absolutely. And without, the primary important support system, it is very difficult for us to expect that
Yeah.
athletes can become champions on their own. Because, they start at very young age, they put in so much of hard work, and parents also contribute greatly for the development of athletes. I think we very well know in terms of PV Sindhu,
Yeah.
or Saina Nehwal, every single person has contributed their success to the
Yeah.
parents being there to a
Yeah,
large extent.
definitely.
So
And yeah, I want to also bring in Phelps' example that, apparently he was diagnosed, with attention deficit.
mm,
But the mother, got him into swimming coaching.
ah,
And initially, there was a little bit of difficulty with Bowman and him, his coach and him
mm.
coming together.
Mm.
But then see what we got, right? Like, so I think,
Absolutely.
really trusting in that process. So it really is about the process, right? Yeah, yeah. I want to ask one final question in this section, which is on, what do you really feel about certain belts? I know quite a few people have asked me this, okay?
Mm.
Because you look at Haryana athletes, or let's say down south for us, let's say Kogis, so, we have like Sakshi, the Pogats, Neeraj, then in the Coog we have a lot of the hockey players, Robin Uthappa. So, the role of culture and certain belts, do you think there's something there?
Definitely. I do think, like, with the athletes that I have worked with, I have seen the difference in terms of how they handle the pressure situations, the ones who are in the north and compared to the ones probably from the south. I do see that kind of a difference. But what I've also seen is how they can communicate with each other. And when the coach comes in and he builds in a process in terms of how I want the communication within the team or within an individual athlete, how that helps in building a champion mindset, because they end up
Yes.
having, like, team champion
Yes.
mindset.
Yeah.
So that process, I mean, of course, whichever place they come from has a huge influence on how they handle the situation. That is definitely there. But even the coach's role,
Yes,
so
definitely.
important.
Yeah, undoubtedly. The only reason I was asking was mainly because if you see, like, a lot of the wrestlers and combat sports are coming from, a lot of the runners are coming from south, especially the
Yeah.
Kerala belt. It could be Pidusha. A lot of the judokas are coming from, like, the northeast. So there seems to be, which is, I think, people are beginning to explore, and like, let's see what comes. But yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing with what you said, also the mindset of the coach from certain belts also could play a
Yeah.
role. So
yeah.
what does it mean to have a competition mindset? We hear this word a lot, right? Let's just try to tease it out a little, right? Like, can we, what do you feel? What's your first thoughts about it?
So I am only thinking about this one particular athlete who is coming to my mind when it comes to competition mindset. Okay. So with this particular athlete, he had back-to-back competitions the same day. And in the first competitions, I saw him that, he was feeling extremely low in terms of his confidence, and he did not know he was becoming extremely small. He was hunching. And during the break, we both were having the conversation, and I was like, what do you think is happening? It was like the same issue is happening in every single competition, is happening the same way. I asked him, what do you want to do now? What do you want to do about it? You very well know what the problem is. And how do you want to handle this particular situation?
And this was in a competition.
Yeah.
Right.
And basically, he said that, what, I don't want to go out there and play this way. And in the next competition that I saw him, he just took charge of the whole, how he feels, how he's going to think. And there was so much shift in his body language. He became so, confident. It was such a joy to actually go out there and watch him. And he ended up winning a medal.
Right.
So I think that for me, competition mindset, again, is taking charge.
Yeah. And also what you're saying is it's also, what I hear from you is your athlete took charge, and also because we see that sometimes, they'll blame it on all sorts of things, right?
Yeah.
But he took charge and went, this is not how I want to be, which sent a message of how do I want to be there.
Yeah.
Right. And that seems to be a defining moment in,
And for, like, right now what is happening is every single time he reflects back on that experience and
Yes.
remembers that, what, I've done it there. I can always do it. I
Exactly.
don't have to be stuck in that phase every time.
Yeah. Precisely. I mean, if you go back to flow state for a minute, that's what it is. It's about, and also about a champion is, how am I pushing myself? How am I challenging myself? What's that one little step? This is a question I ask athletes.
Yeah.
What's that one little step you can take today to touch your zenith?
Awesome.
Yeah. That's a wonderful example.
Hmm.
So, what do you feel about the role of routines? We hear a lot of pre-game routines, rituals. So, what do you feel about that?
I think it really helps, because what I've seen with athletes is, since the time they wake up, or probably even the previous day, they have certain routines that they end up following.
Right.
And of course, when they wake up, they want to do certain rituals, they want to do certain things. Some of them want to pray, some of them want to, exercise for some amount of time, some of them want to listen to a particular set of music.
Yeah.
There are multiple things that each athlete feels that, is important for him to do.
Right. Yeah, I remember hearing Rahul Dravid saying, he would like to go for long walks, before, like let's say tomorrow's the tournament, like this evening, because that really opens up, your mind state. And he would say how that in India it's really not possible.
Yeah.
Right, like, because you're gonna get thronged by people. And I think also what's important is, this was a question I remember one of the young tennis players asked me that, ma'am, should I go out and party? Should I go out or shouldn't I go out when we're with the team? And I'm like, what do you feel like doing? And also, what helps you? Like, if sitting in the room, you're psyching yourself negatively, is that helping? But then if you go out and you're not feeling okay, so you know what helps. And then also knowing that there is a particular routine you follow, which then gives a message to your brain that things are normal, things are fine, right? So I think that's what we're trying to understand with routine, right? Yeah.
Like, some teams also have slogans. Like, if you look at some of the rugby teams, they also want to scare the opponent, right? So that becomes their routine that they do before the competition.
Oh, I love that. What's that called?
Haka.
Yeah, my God, it was beautiful. I remember playing it during one of the teams I was working with. There was this very young boy who joined. So the video was about him, but just that energy you feel, and you're right, because I actually had an athlete, very Indian Olympian, who said that I would go scare the opponents. Okay. So then I said, but is there a need? And he said, no, ma'am, but that was how I would psych myself, because so it's also, I mean, of course he said it like after he'd finished, right? Like, so you don't want your opponents to know. And I think what you said is also beautiful, because when I feel centered and I am fully in myself, in my zone, right? The message I give out to the opponent is I'm ready. Right?
Yeah. And I think that is so important for competition mindset, right? We know of so many athletes, like, for example, Abhinav Bindra, I think in his autobiography, he has actually spoken in terms of, how he would idealize people, the ones he would compete with. And then he felt that this approach is not going to help me. I need to look at them as competitors.
Exactly.
So I think that is so important, especially to have a competition mindset.
I worked with one of the swimmers. I actually spoke about it in another section where, he felt he couldn't beat a record because it was an Indian swimmer, right? And I think that's what it is. Like, it's really about knowing that you're there because you deserve to be there. Right, and to work through these unconscious patterns as well becomes very, very important.
Absolutely.
I was wondering about Djokovic's comment, right, where he said, don't beat yourself about being in the present all the time. So what do you feel? Because we tend to see athletes,
it's difficult, because our mind keeps wandering. There's so many thoughts which keep coming all the time. I mean, it's very difficult to actually practice presence. To be in the present is extremely difficult, and it requires practice. And the more you're going to be critical, it is going to be working against being present. So I think to develop competition mindset, again, you need to be extremely compassionate because
Yeah.
you're going to have your wins. Probably in your career, I think there'll be more losses than the wins,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I think how you support yourself, how you actually encourage yourself, what words do you use towards
Right,
yourself,
exactly.
because
Your self-talk,
yeah,
right?
so
Yeah, your
important.
self-talk. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think also a phrase I like to use is, we're all in the process of becoming Buddha. Because
Mm.
athletes are so self-critical.
Yeah.
There's already enough of people judging you, pulling you down, and pressure. There's no need to,
Yes.
feel more pressurized, right? I
Mm.
really like that. And I also liked what Djokovic actually said, in terms of, to recognize that you've gone off, come back.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
think it's impossible, and especially in today's world, and also with the competition, you're probably going to go in and out. And let's
Mm.
especially like something like tennis, something like golf, which is longer, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's very, very essential to go, okay, what brings me back to my
Correct.
present, right?
Correct.
Right. So Priyanka, I love that first example you gave, and I was wondering, like, when we see a particular athlete, right?
Mm.
Or let's say we've had a session just before, or a major tournament. Can you kind of gauge, is this guy or is this girl ready?
Mm.
What are the parameters you actually use, and then how do you work with it?
I think one is, of course, the language that they use,
Hmm.
right? Some of them speak in terms of, oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And some of them are like unsure.
yeah.
They feel that, oh, I don't know how it's going to be. It's not such an important tournament. The language that they use gives a lot of indication in terms of how ready they are.
Yeah, yeah,
Because I know of some athletes who, first of all, are ready for any of the competitions,
yeah.
be it a small one or be it a major one, that,
I think our Virat Kohli comes under that.
yeah.
He loves, and he just loves challenges.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember one of this athlete, very, very popular athlete in India, who told me that, for you to become a confident player, you need to be a confident person.
I totally love that
Yeah.
statement. Yeah,
He
yeah,
said that you need to know how to go out there and handle anything that
yeah,
comes your way.
yeah.
And that is what I go out there and do on
Yes,
the
yes.
field.
I thank you for bringing this in, because
Yeah.
this is something I think we try to, put into parents' head, especially
Yeah.
because especially Indian parents, it's about you over cocoon your child. I really want to bring in this example of
Hmm.
this very young tennis player, okay, and he was
Hmm.
a prodigy, doing exceptionally well and all. And first session, okay, I gave him to read something, and I
Hmm.
think there was a little bit of reading issue, something. But the minute it gets tough, he's like, I
Oh.
can't. And
Yeah.
I'm like, it's okay, just get the gist. And the history with him was, as far as he's leading, he's perfectly fine. But the minute he
Hmm.
wouldn't, he like the minute the opponent even starts coming back, he throw the racket away literally, and the
Oh.
game is gone.
Yeah.
And then when you trace the history, they were over cocooning him.
Okay.
So what you're saying is right. So what you are, and that's something even I tell athletes, that
Hmm.
what you are outside the court is as important as what you are inside.
Absolutely.
You can't be like two people. Of course, there's certain image you carry, there's certain role you put on when you come into a competitive zone. You don't stay in that full time, but what you are really influences what you do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I've seen that, those who feel that who can handle anything in their personal life, they are amazing even on the field. When any new situation, unpredictable things end up
Yeah.
happening on the field, they're just there. They know
Yes,
that, okay,
yes.
I know that I will be able to handle.
Right. Yeah, and there's certain players, and what you said about challenge, I think we can wrap up this, this session with that is, and something that I always ask athletes is, how are you going to challenge yourself today? Because,
Yeah.
sport is unpredictable, just like life for that
Hmm.
matter, and any minute, any challenge. So, you have to get prepared. So the more you challenge yourself, the more you're going to keep bettering yourself, and then, it doesn't come as so much of a shock.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the session, performed exceptionally well for KKR. And, the kind of confidence and the kind of competition mindset that he went with, right? He felt like a champion. Probably, I don't know what he thought of, because they
yeah.
just had, I think, they had to score 29 runs within.
I think so. I don't
Yeah.
remember the exact details,
But
but
he
yeah,
was
yeah.
phenomenal.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
so unpredictable. But what he did for the team and the kind of mindset he
Right.
went
Yeah.
with,
Yeah.
This is amazing.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So I think, and there, I guess also one is yours, and building on that team energy also becomes very
Yeah.
important. I think
Yeah.
it's wonderful. I mean, of course, the leagues and younger players coming up, it's really brought a different kind of challenge for youngsters to really make it at the big stage.
Yeah.
So yeah, so great. This is really amazing, and I hope you all got an idea with this as to like what is it to develop a champion mindset, right?
Mm.
Like so it is a process like the flow state, but then it also aids you have your how do
Mm.
I stay in this zone.
Mm.
So thank you, Priyanka.
Thank you, ma'am.